What's good, y'all? It's your boy Sean P, the Bluff guy. Hey! And today we are back with another Berserk read through. We will be reading chapter 13. And if you're reading this on like through the book or I don't know the many ways to read Berserk. Uh this will be the Golden Age arc chapter 5. But before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that like button. Also, subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. Follow me on Twitch so you could catch these live streams. Also, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And join the Discord and come be a part of my community. So, yeah, we are on chapter 5 of the Golden Age arc. If you're reading this on a manga app or something, this should be chapter 13. And yeah, so last chapter we got the official meeting of Guts and Griffith. You know, Guts just got paid for the mercenary work he was just doing, and Griffith's squad or platoon or mercenary group, whatever it is, they were watching Guts as he was going along the road, and a few of them decided to, hey, let's go take this man's money. Didn't work out for him though. Guts proved to be a little too much for these guys. So Griffith is like, hey, he told his second command, like, hey, go save them. She went to go fight Guts. Guts almost killed her. Griffith had to intervene. And Griffith was able to put Guts down. Be it Griffith had the advantage of having the high ground, being on a horse, and Guts was just fighting. Now that's not to make an excuse for Guts and say that Griffith isn't superior over Guts, but it was some variables there just to give Guts a little benefit of the doubt. But let's get into chapter 13, chapter 5 of the Golden Age arc for all you novel people. Let's get into it. So we get this cover page with Griffith and Guts both having like a stare off, and you see like a light in the background, and it says the Golden Age chapter 5. Dope cover page. I like it. So we get this page with a big thing. I don't know what it is. It's a muscular creature chasing Guts through what looks to be like a fiery pit or something. I don't know, man. I'm kind of assuming this might just be a dream, or maybe it's just a illustration. I don't know. But Guts is also much younger. This is his younger self at the same time. I want to say this is around before Gambino died, or before like everything happened with Gambino. Probably around the time where Shishu was still alive. This looked like Guts around that age when Shishu died. Maybe like after that when Gambino started training Guts. Okay, so we see this creature still chasing Guts, and it reaches out to Guts, and Guts is running away with his big sword. And Guts turns around and cut the creature's hand right in between his index and middle finger. And we see blood on the sword, but the creature still continues to pursue Guts despite the cut with the same hand. Kind of assume this is like a dream. So Guts looks behind him, and we see Gambino sitting in his chair playing with the dog. He has both his legs, surprisingly. So, this must be a dream. And Guts says, Gambino. And Guts is running towards Gambino. He says, Gambino, save me. Cutting this thing with a sword doesn't work. And Gambino is just kind of, playing with the dog, ignoring Guts. Guts says, Gambino. And then Gambino turns and looks and says, don't be ridiculous. We get like a shot from over Gambino's shoulder looking at Guts. And Gambino says, that's my right leg you've got in your hand, isn't it? Without that, I can't even use a sword. And it's almost like the sword Guts had in his hand turns into Gambino's leg. and Guts throws it on the ground and says, "Ah." Gambino says, "Besides, did you forget? I'm dead and gone now. You showed your sword right up through my throat." And he's like holding his throat, and then he like lifts it up, and you just see his head start to rip off the rest of his neck. And Gambino says, "It hurts a lot, even to death." Gambino says, "Who'd help the creep who caused this anyway? Right, Shishu?" And then we see the dog, and it looks like Shisu, except like with a disfigured face. Gus says, "Gambino, listen, I was..." And then that creature that was pursuing Guts grabs him by the arms. It says, "Guts, Guts." Oh, don't tell me this is Donovan. I feel like this creature might turn out to be Donovan. I feel like it. I feel like it. Which one thing I noticed about that situation with Donovan, and kind of with, I want to say chapter 10 or 11, like the chapter where Guts was working for that knight and he slayed Bazuso, and then the knight touched him and he got angry. It made me realize what made Guts like not like people touching him, and I think it was the situation with Donovan. You know, it just like it's one of them things on my last stream. My last Berserk stream that I realized after the stream was over. But yeah, so Guts pretty much doesn't like people touching him because of the situation with Donovan. It makes sense. So yeah, that creature has Donovan's face, and he fully engulfs a young Guts. And Guts says, "Gambino!" And next we see Gambino has turned, him and Shishui turned into skeletons. He's thinking, "You should have died. Forgive me. Please forgive me, Gambino." And it says, "You should have died." The scene kind of start phasing. We see like Guts laying down in like a silhouette, cuddling with Guts. And Guts says, "Don't touch me. Stop. Don't touch me." Okay, so this person who's like cuddling with Guts seems to be Korka, or I think it's Korka. I think it's the girl who was working for Griffith. It seems to be her kind of cuddling with Guts in this dream-like sequence. I'm assuming this is like Guts being unconscious, so he's dreaming all this. And Guts thinks to himself, a woman? And it looks like that girl Korka. I think that's her name, Korka. She's like cuddling with Guts. And Gus says, "Dark eyes." So Gus is waking up and he's inside of a tent. All his belongings are around him. We see some barrels, like a chest. You know, so, you know, it just shows that Griffith was going to say, I kind of knew it. It's not like Gus was going to die, but, you know, I kind of assumed Griffith was going to take Guts in. You know, like even when he fought Guts, he asked Guts to put his sword down, so he didn't want to fight Guts. You know, even though he didn't let his men, he didn't stop his men from attacking Guts, but still saved Guts. Okay. Guts is thinking, "Where am I?" And he lifts his head up and he's like grimacing in pain. And we get like a little picture of Griffith over Guts. I'm assuming Guts is thinking about what happened with Griffith. So Guts gets up and he exits the tent. He looks and we see a band of mercenaries, or, you know, Griffith's crew, I assume. You know, some guys shaving themselves, some guys taking baths, some guys gambling or playing cards at least. You know, kind of like just a group of soldiers. Guts is thinking to himself, a merc band? Really young though. So we see Guts looking and we see Griffith, and I want to say her name is Korka in the background. And Griffith and Korka are talking, and Griffith says, "That's," or Guts is thinking, "That's." We see Korka kind of trembling, and Griffith like grabs her by the shoulders, and then she like walks off from Griffith and heads straight towards Guts. A little angry. Guts says, dark eyes. So this was the girl he was dreaming about, who was laying next to him in his like nightmare dreamlike sequence. And she pulls up right next to Guts, and all you see is her cock her fist back and punch Guts right in his injury. Guts is like breathing hard and says, Corker says, I wish you died after Griffith was through with you. Why? Like, y'all started messing with Guts. Y'all can't be mad at Guts that he was about to eliminate most of y'all. Y'all can't be mad. Y'all can't be mad at Guts. Guts is wincing in pain, and Corker walks off. And then we see one of the other mercs, the guy who was like shaving the stone, or I'm guessing he's like sharpening his knife. That's what he's doing. He says, it's only natural. Our Casca, that's her name, Casca. God, I keep messing up his name. The one guy's name was Corcus, and her name is Casca. Yeah, Casca. He says, our Casca gave up being a woman so she could be a mercenary long ago. In truth, she's a much better swordsman than the men here. He says, by Griffith's orders, she had to sleep with you for 2 days and 2 nights in order to warm up your body since you'd gone cold from losing so much blood. Okay, so when he was dreaming it, it was actually happening, but he's kind of seeing it in his dream. Then the guy says, warming a man is a woman's duty, he said. Oh, I get it. She doesn't see herself as a woman, but she had to do a woman-like duty. And then we see a guy in the tub, and I think the guy who was sharpening his knife, like, threw his knife at the pail that the guy in the tub was holding. Because we see, like, the pail, like, explode. Somebody says, what the hell you doing, Judo? Judo, I think that's his name, Judo. I think Judo says, did that wake you up? Sorry. And Guts looks back. We see it's Griffith. And Guts and Griffith are both eyeing each other. Griffith says, I'm Griffith. What's your name? Guts says, Guts. Griffith has Guts' sword. Griffith says, it's an amazing sword. I could never wield it. And he gives it to Guts. And Griffith says, would you accompany me? Guts follows after Griffith with his sword sheathed behind him. Judo is looking at him walk away. And then we see them pass Casca. She looks in shock and she says, Griffith. I feel like Casca and Guts is going to have some type of little love thing going on in the future. I just feel it. You know, from low key, I felt like that from the time that Guts and Casca met. Like when Casca like takes off or when Guts realized that Casca was a woman after Casca pretty much attacks Guts, and then they're like, Casca has to cuddle up with Guts. I feel like they're gonna eventually have like a little thing. I just feel it, which could end up leading to why Guts hates Griffith so much. It might not be only the fact that Griffith was willing to sacrifice Guts. Maybe Griffith sacrificed Casca and the rest of their men as well. That's just my observation. That's just gonna be my guess. Could be wrong. I don't know. And then we see Corcus. That was his name, Corcus. He says, Shaw, what the heck's Griffith thinking? Saving a creep like that. And then we see a guy like cleaning a crossbow or putting a crossbow together. And he says, maybe he's making an ally. Corcus says, huh? And the kid, it looked like he might be a real much younger kid. He says, I mean, he was incredibly strong. On our side, I'll bet he'd really help with battles. Corcus says, quit spouting that crap, Rickard. So that's the guy's name, Rickard, or that's the kid's name, Rickard. And then he kicks the crossbow parts out of Rickard's hand. Corcus says, he cut off Errol's arm and killed Dante. How can we just leave him be after that? And then Rickard's thinking in his head, you're the ones who started it. And then Corcus says, right, Pippin? We see like a guy walking up to Rickard and Corcus. And then we see a big bulky guy. Kind of remind me of Donovan a little bit. And he has his arms crossed and he's just looking. And we see Casca watching. I guess she's watching Griffith and Guts walk through the mercenary camp. So as Guts and Griffith walk through the camp, we see all like this band of mercenaries is all looking on. You know, some look like they might be a little upset. They're all on high alert. And Guts says, "So, who are they?" "All these guys with the evil eye." Griffith says, "The band of the Hawk." And Guts looks like shocked. And he's thinking, the band of the Hawk. So Guts probably heard of them before. It seems like Guts is familiar with this band or this mercenary group. Griffith says, "You know of us?" Gus says, "Just rumors." And I think he's thinking to himself, while we kind of see like a group of guys in silhouette on horses and a bunch of dead bodies. And he's thinking to himself, the band of the Hawk, one of the last merc groups you ever want to meet up with on the battlefield. Thanks to them being on the other side, this last castle siege should have been over in 3 days, but took over 3 months. And all these guys are just looking. Still, I never noticed it during the battle. To think they'd all be so young. And then we see Griffith and Guts walk up to this hilltop. And Griffith stretched out and says, "Ah, what a view." Guts asks, "Why?" "Back there, why'd you miss my heart? It should have been easy for you." And we see Casca must have followed him. She's behind the tree. Guts says, "Why didn't you kill me?" And Griffith looks over his shoulder at Guts and then he turns around. And Griffith says, "Because I realize I want you." Guts. Oh, pause. Pause. Nah, I know what you mean. He just wanted him on his mercenary group. That's what I'm assuming. I could be wrong about that. So Casca looks behind that tree at Guts, looks a little confused, and he says, "Are you a homo?" And then Griffith look and you see like sweat coming down his face. And he says, "We were also in that castle 4 days ago." We go back to that moment where Guts was fighting Buzuzo. Griffith is talking and says, "And fortunate enough to watch your one-on-one combat with Buzuzo. It was admirable. But it was dangerous." So we see the moment Buzuzo knocks the helmet off of Guts, and Guts is cutting Buzuzo in the midsection. He says, "If Buzuzo's battle axe hadn't cracked, it would have been you with the cloven head." Guts says, "Probably." Griffith says, "You're honest. The way you fight, it's almost as though you're gambling on your own life." And then Guts looks like, oh my goodness, he has me figured out. Cause Guts know, like Guts don't care, man. Like after everything he's been up to this point, I'm pretty sure he's ready for death. Honestly, he's ready for death up to this point. Griffith says, "You don't budge an inch against a monster like that, like Buzuzo, or multiple opponents like Corcus Group. Instead, you run in recklessly, sword swinging. It's no doubt courageous, but it seems that while initially exposing yourself to the risk of death, you're also struggling to make it out alive. That's how it felt to me." And Gus looks like, damn, this guy has me figured out. And Griffith says, "You're interesting, and I've taken a liking to you." And he has this super like almost seductive face at Guts. Like he likes him in a different type of way. And then Guts just looks like a little shocked. And Griffith says, "I want you, Guts." We see Casca behind the tree looking a little jealous. And Guts is looking a little cringe, like he's looking like he's a little cringing, right? He said, he's thinking, who's he think he is talking to people like that? And then Guts asks, "And if I say no?" Griffith says, "Do you?" And Guts says, "You bet your ass hell no." Guts says, "Then you make me your soldier or fag boy or whatever." Guess I don't know if you want that. And then he says, "All right." And then Griffith prepares for combat. And we see Griffith hair flowing in the wind. And he says, "I don't dislike doing things by force." Casca comes from behind the tree and says, "Griffith, Guts looks back. Griffith says, "Stay out of this, Casca." Casca says, "But." Griffith says, "I must obtain the things I desire." Guts brings his sword over his head, and he's thinking, it's that damn superior attitude that makes me sick. And then he swings at Griffith, and Griffith also comes with like a horizontal swing to block Guts' attack. And their swords clash, and Casca looks on. So then we see the big guy, Pippin. He like looks on, so I think he hears the clash happening. And the other mercs say, "What's up, Pippin?" And Pippin just looks on, and he said, and Rickard, I think that's his name, Rickard. He says, "Look." And we see Corcus and another guy in the background looking, and they all notice the fight with Griffith and Guts. And we see the clash between Guts and Griffith. Griffith counters Guts' vertical swing by, allowing his sword to slide off. And it looked like he's going for Guts' neck, but I don't know if Guts, I don't see Guts block that, but because next we see Guts and Griffith both kind of in a deadlock, and then Guts swings again, so they're pretty much fighting. Griffith blocks another vertical swing, and then we see Guts. He manages to cut Guts on the bicep. Guts is squirting blood. So now we see Griffith throw Guts to the ground, and he pretty much has the advantage at this time. And Casca looks in happiness that Griffith is seemingly winning. And Guts says, "How'd he do that? I'm confident I can slice through even steel plate with this sword. He's parrying all my attacks with that narrow blade, and damn well doing it with just one hand." Guts gets back onto his feet and says, this guy's good." Griffith says, "We can postpone this, You're disadvantaged with those injuries." And Guts charges and says, "Can it?" And we see Griffith parrying Guts' attacks. Guts says, "I'll win. I'll beat him." And Griffith is just blocking all of Guts' attacks. Guts says, "Faster, stronger." Casca's looking on in anxiousness. And we see all the other mercenaries arriving. And Corcus says, "That insolent prick." He has a crossbow in hand. He says, "Kill him." And Casca says, "Hold it." Casca says, "It's Griffith's order. Don't interfere." Corcus says, "Don't be stupid. This is our chance to kill him out of the way." And then Casca has her sword at Corcus' neck. And Casca says, "Since when are you the boss, Corcus? Here Griffith's orders are absolute, remember?" And then we see Corcus just looks scared. Yo, Corcus is going to be a problem later, man. He's going to be a problem. I don't know how just yet, but he might cause some more lies. He might try to kill Guts. I don't know. He might end up being the reason Casca dies. If Casca dies, I'm thinking Casca's going to eventually die. Then we see Griffith swinging the sword, and we see a bunch of cuts just going all through Guts' body. We got one to the shoulder, one to the right tricep, one to both of his legs. And Guts is grimacing in pain. And we see Griffith just going to work at Guts, just slicing him up. It looked like he's enjoying himself, though. He's thoroughly enjoying putting on a pain clinic to Guts. We see Guts is still in it, though. Guts is still in it. He goes in for a slash. Or no. It looks like Guts kicks some grass into Griffith's eyes. And we see Griffith like blocking the the grass or the debris. All the mercenaries are looking and worried. And one of them say, "No." It looked like Corcus says, "No fair." What are you talking about, no fair, bro? You've been fighting unfairly this whole time. I want to hear it from you, bro. And Guts goes in for a swing. We get a double page spread. And Guts says, "Gotcha." But Griffith jumps in the air and jumps on top of Guts' sword. And he's like balancing himself on Guts' sword. So we got Griffith standing on Guts' sword, and all the other mercenaries look shocked. And we see Guts' sword in the dirt, and Griffith has his sword at Guts' neck. The mercenaries say, "Oh wow, did you see that? Unbelievable, he's godlike. Griffith beat him." Griffith says, "I like you more and more. You'll do anything to win. But you can't swing your sword like this. What now? Feel free to give up if you wish." And then Guts says, "You're a talkative bastard." And then we see Griffith's sword at Guts's mouth, and it looked like Guts is about to bite the sword. And Guts says, "I'll show you how mouths should be used in a fight." And then we get the next page. We see Griffith's eyes just looking shocked, and Guts bites. Guts bites onto Griffith's sword. And that is the end of the chapter. The Golden Age, chapter 5, the end. Okay. So, enjoyable chapter, you know. It's mostly Guts waking up at this camp after he had this nightmare of Donovan, like this big monster that turned out to be Donovan's face, chasing him as a much younger child, like around the time that Shishu died, like after that time. And we also see him go ask Gambino for help, but Gambino pretty much says, "Look, I don't have a leg and you killed me. How can I help you? Plus, why would I help you?" Gambino is also playing with this dog that turned out to be Shishu. At least in the face it was Shishu. And at the end of that dream, we see Guts is like dreaming about Casca laying next to him, which turned out to really happen, but he also sees it in his dream as well. So he wakes up, goes out of his tent that, he's wondering where he's at. Hey, he just wakes up at this mysterious camp, and he leaves the tent, and he's looking around, notice all these mercenaries, and he sees Griffith and Casca talking to each other. Casca she's talking to Griffith and walks away in anger, walks straight up the Guts, and then punches him in his injury. Come to find out that, I want to say, I forgot the guy's name, but he was the one sharpening his knife. He tells Guts like, "Hey, she's mad because she gave up being a woman a long time ago, but she had to lay up with you to keep you warm so you don't die, which is a woman's job." Understandable. Griffith walks up to Guts, pretty much tells Guts to follow him through the camp, and they walk on top of this hill. Griffith pretty much says, "Hey, I like you, Guts. I want you to be a part of the band." Guts kind of like, "Hey," or he doesn't even say it like that. He just says, "I want you." Guts is like, "Hold on, I don't go that way. Like, you better chill with all that. I ain't trying to be your little plaything." Casca also follows the two as they're on top of this hill, curious what's going on. And Griffith says, "Look, I want you to be a part of my group. I notice how, you don't fear death. Matter of fact, a lot of times you risk your own life to win fights. So I'm just interested in you. I want you to be a part of us. I think you will be a big asset to the band, which we learn is the Hawk, the Band of the Hawk. That's the name of the mercenary group. Guts is familiar with that. He's familiar with this mercenary group. But he's still like, "Look, I don't want to join. And I remember how you guys tried to kill me, and I also killed one of your guys. So I'm pretty sure you might still hold a grudge to that." And Griffith's like, "Look, man, I still like you. I want you part of it." And Guts is like, "How about this? Let's fight here and now." And then Griffith says, "Well, what if I win?" Or Guts says, "If I win, I get to leave." And then Griffith says, "What if I win?" Guts said, "Well, I'll be part of your group or your little lover." You know what I'm saying? Your little lover or whatever. So we see the two fight, and Griffith pretty much has the advantage this whole time in the fight. Even though Guts tried to play a little dirty, Griffith still was able to rebound from that. And It seems that Griffith had the advantage. He had his sword at Guts' neck, and Guts was like, hey, you know what teeth are for. So he pretty much bites Guts' sword, and that is the end of the chapter. Even though Guts wants to fight Griffith, Griffith still has taken a liking to Guts and wants him even more as this fight progresses. Great chapter overall. You know, it was a nice little, setup chapter for the eventual Guts joining the team. You know, enjoyable. You know, we're getting a little more Guts and Griffith history, which is dope. So yeah, y'all, make sure you guys hit that like button. Also subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. Comment down below, what did you think of the chapter? What did you think of the read through? Also follow me on Twitch if you want to catch these live streams. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and join the Discord. All of these will be in the description box down below. So make sure you guys show some love, show some support. Yeah, I'll really appreciate it. I will really appreciate it. Anyway, y'all, it's your boy Sean P, the Bluff Guy. Now I'm out of here. Peace.